Hey guys, I'm Brianna Brees from Colby Beef Production. I'm with David Aborn. He was our Carcass ultrasound tech today. So David, since you've been around doing ultrasounding quite a bit, what has been some changes that you've seen in the beef industry with Carcass ultrasounding?
Okay. So historically, we've had, our standard, select, choice, prime, quality grades. And, the ultrasound has helped the industry move so far that they've all but eliminated select cattle. I mean, the marbling has moved so much on them. And, like I've noticed an improvement in these cattle here at the college in no longer than I've been coming here. Like we scanned a set of home-raised heifers here today that are just top notch. I mean, you won't find a better set of Carcass cattle anywhere. And then they still have some phenotype to them. They look good, because we can see, in our Carcass cattle, we can see them start to look like Carcass cattle. They're just not as pretty to look at. And these are still good to look at. So it's been a lot of improvement over the years that I've been ultrasounding.
Yeah. So with that, is there differences between like the black, reds, Charolais,
Okay.
Red Angus?
Yeah. So typically our English-based cattle, our Herefords, our Angus, Red Angus, those will tend to scan better than our continental breeds like your Simmentals or your Charolais. Historically, the Simmentals and Charolais were bred to pull a plow, so they have a big ribeye, not much marbling, tough muscle for pulling a plow all day. Whereas our other cattle, our English cattle, were, we wanted to eat them, and so they would be, not as big a muscle, but still plenty, and then higher marbling.
So how did you start off into becoming an ultrasound Carcass?
Okay, so mine was an accident. I mean, it actually was an accident. I was going to grad school because I thought I wanted to be a county extension agent back in the day, and I had figured out that as long as you're in school, no one asks why you don't have a job. So I needed a class. My advisor taught me how to do this, and I went with him and learned how to do it. And then this is the part most parents don't like, but I quit grad school to do this 25 years ago, and I've been really happy doing it. I travel from the Mississippi River all the way to the West Coast, and from North Dakota to North Texas. Have some of the best clients in the country. They're always willing to help me work on my schedule and get their cattle done when they need to be done, and they're friendly and they have plenty of help. And so, yeah, it was just an accident. But so I would always tell people, like, stay in school, because if I hadn't have been going to school, I'd have never met my advisor and would have never ended up doing what I do.
You said you traveled a lot. Where's out of the states the most that you travel to?
Okay, so I do a lot of cattle here in Kansas, all over the state, and then I'll do a lot in Montana, and do a lot in Washington, Oregon, North Dakota, South Dakota, Missouri and Arkansas, Kansas and Oklahoma. Do some oddball stuff here and there in Idaho, do a few in Iowa, and do a little bit in North Texas. So.
Okay. How much academic training wise do you need to become an ultrasound?
You really don't need any. You need some dedication. Time management skills will probably be your most important part, is, just knowing how fast you can work a set of cattle at each place and get from there to the next job and be on time. And, that's probably the most important part. You need to know a little bit about computers, but not a lot. And the labs are really good that we send our images to. They're really good about helping you walk through that kind of stuff if you have trouble and getting you up to speed. So I would say, time management, but work ethic would probably be the most important part. So.
Okay. How much time do you spend on the road?
Okay. So the work is seasonal. We work around, typically it's a year of age. Each breed has a little bit different age window, but typically it's 320 to 440 days of age. So we'll work around yearlings. And so from January till the middle of April, we're really busy. And then starting again, like the end of August through the middle part of November, we'll be really busy. So.
Gotcha. And when you're scanning, what are you looking for in
Okay, so the first picture I always take is ribeye area, and we'll measure ribeye area and fat thickness on that picture. And then I'll take some intramuscular fat pictures. We have to take 4, and I take 5 of them just because I take them so fast that once in a while I blur one. And we got to have 3 good ones for the producer to get information on them. So if I take 5, I won't say they're guaranteed to get 3 good ones, but I've never had an issue with it. So. And because as long as your producer gets info, they're happy with you. And then depending on the breed, some breeds also require what they call a rump fat measurement. The Angus beef masters require that, and then the Charolais prefer it, but they don't require it. So.
Gotcha. And would this be a career made for more family friendly or more for just by yourself?
Yeah,
What?
I would say this is definitely a single person's game. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're on the road so much that it makes it hard on your home life because you'd be gone, and a lot of times you're just depending on where your home is actually at. You just stop in to do laundry on your way to the next job. So basically for almost 6 months of the year, you're kind of on your own, and they're on their own. So it's definitely. I always tell people it's a young single person's game, really. If you want to devote the time and effort to it. So.
Right. How many head do you scan in a year?
Yeah, it'll vary a little bit from year to year, but it's somewhere around 8,000 head that I scan a year. The average technician does 600 head, and I get that pretty early in the year. But typically in our line of work, 80% of the work is done by 20% of the technicians. And so there's always room for a good technician out there, but it's a little tough to break into unless you kind of catch somebody as they're wanting to quit and willing to turn their stuff over to you. And that's the other thing that how I got into mine was I met a guy that wanted to turn his over, and I took over for him. So that made it a lot easier than just trying to establish a new business. So.
Sure. And is there any other species that you've scanned before other than cattle?
Yeah, I know how to do loin eye area on sheep and goats and hogs as well. We'll do those at county fairs for carcass contests and stuff. And apparently that's an odd deal. I didn't think nothing about it because my advisor taught me how to do all of them at the same time. So I didn't. But apparently it's tough to find somebody that can do all 4. Typically they'll do 2 or maybe 3. And it's really not hard to switch from species to species because we're still kind of looking for the same landmarks as the ribeye area on the cattle. And I've actually talked to a couple of guys that were good at scanning cows, talked them through it over the phone, while they were trying to learn how to do it. So it's really not that hard. So the switch.
Was there any species that you thought was more difficult to scan, easier to scan?
Yeah, sheep are actually really easy to scan, especially at the carcass contest because they've got short wool on them, and the lanolin makes it oily anyhow. Goats are the hardest one to scan just because their ribs are so close together. And I've discovered that if I have someone stand on the opposite side of me and just kind of pull that goat around their knee, it'll really open those ribs up, and then you can get in there and take a good picture of them. So.
What is one piece of advice you would give to producers to improve their carcass value to the herd?
Okay. The main thing I tell my guys is to keep the cattle's routine as normal as possible. Like I have a lot of trouble with some of my bull sale guys, like they want to video and clip and semen check and lot tag and do all this other stuff to the cow, run them through the chute 6 times before I get there. And it's like, if you'll let me go first, I'm like, I get that you're going to get oil on them. It's going to mess up their clipping, but we'll have got the best data we can get on them just because we haven't stressed those cattle out and worked their marbling out of them. And then, the other thing is that carcass traits are highly heritable. So, if you'll just pay a little bit of attention to when you're selecting the bull for just make sure he's positive on all your traits, you can really move them in a hurry. So.
Sure. And, when you're scanning, when you're looking at the ultrasound, what exactly, I guess just describe what you're looking at.
Okay. So the first picture I take is ribeye area, and they'll measure ribeye area and fat thickness on the same picture, and I use a standoff pad to fit the curvature of the animal for that one. And then I'll take the standoff pad off, and I'll go across their ribs, and we'll measure the marbling or fat within the muscle on that picture. And that's our most critical picture as far as how the animal stands. We can change the values a lot just by whether the animal raises his head up or down, or whether he arches his back. And so that one, I tell people I'm not being picky just to be picky. I'm just trying to get you guys the best information that I can get. And that's the one where we really got to watch how the animal stands to make sure he's not, down in the chute is the worst way you can scan one. And, it just, if we're going to do the work, I want to do a good job for them. So.
Right. And with that pad, what's the importance of keeping it on or keeping it off?
Okay, so it just helps us fit the curvature of their back. I can actually get a ribeye picture without it, but because that probe is so long, I have to mash on it really hard, and it'll actually make the animal look leaner than he is. It'll kind of squish the fat out from under it. And so that's why we want to use it to get a good accurate fat measurement on them.
Yeah, and when watching you ultrasound, you put oil on, vegetable oil on the bulls. What's the importance of putting vegetable oil on?
So the ultrasound waves don't actually travel through air fast enough to send and receive a picture. So we'll clip the hair off, make sure there's no dirt on them. I'll comb them, use vegetable oil and, work it in there with the comb and then rake all it off and then reapply the oil so we can get all the air out of them. And that way we can get a good crisp picture. And we showed during the class this morning that, if we don't put the oil on them, you get a black picture. There's nothing to see there. So the oil is very critical that you have the right amount of it on there.
What's one piece of advice that you would give to a younger generation who might want to go into this career?
Yeah. I'd make sure they like to travel, really like to travel. If they're just kind of okay about travel, I wouldn't recommend it at all. My motel bill runs $8,000 a year on average. So you gotta like to travel, and you gotta like waking up in a different place every day. But the one advice I would give them would just, find somebody that does a good job. I wouldn't care to call a lab and be like, hey, who's doing a good job, and are they willing to, show me how to do it? Because that's probably going to be your best training is you get some hands-on training. Just watch somebody that's good and travel with them and kind of see if you like to do it before you committed to it. So. And
where's some places that you could go look at to go into this career?
Okay. So there's 3 labs that you can use. I know 2 of them. Ilia Lab in Harrison, Arkansas, they actually host trainings once in a while. So you could go down there and learn how to do it. And then there's one in Colorado, Becky Hayes. They do some trainings and stuff. So either one of them would be able to give you some advice on a technician that would be willing to let you travel with them and stuff. So,
okay, so what are the benefits with technology for the beef industry?
Okay, so in the past, if we pick a bull just because we liked how he looked, so we'd use that bull, breed a set of cows, to almost a year till you get calves on the ground. It's another year till those calves are big enough to put in a feedlot and find out what the carcass merit is on them. Well, at that point, you've got the second set of calves on the ground out of the bull. The third set is in utero waiting, and then you find out that this bull's carcass was terrible. Well, carcass traits are highly heritable, so if we ultrasound the bull before we use them, we can be like, oh, maybe I don't want to use this bull. I want to use a different bull because I'm wanting to retain ownership in these calves, and I want them to, be, upper 2/3 choice or prime or better. And so it's really sped that up as far as, you don't have 3 sets of calves out of a bull before you figure out that you didn't like him as much as you thought you did when you saw him to pick him out.
So before the ultrasound machine how did we determine the carcass value?
So then before the ultrasound machine, we would actually have to harvest the cattle and put them on the rail and have the grader come in and grade them and tell us what they were. And the technicians, we all have to be certified. They compare our data. We'll ultrasound a set of calves at certification. Typically it's 40 head. And then we'll scan maybe another set of 40. And then they'll actually harvest. Usually it's around 90% of those, and they compare our data to the kill data to check us out, make sure we're doing a good job.
Thank you, David. Well, folks, you heard it here. Till next time.